Hola, buenos días. Para nuestros participantes en idioma.
Hello, good morning. For our participants in English, I'm going
dear
to
colleagues,
give
we are
indications
going to have this
regarding
webinar both in Spanish
interpretation.
and in English. For those of you who don't speak Spanish, because the presentations are all going to be in Spanish, you have the option to interpretation. Is that down in the bar? There is a little word with the word interpretation. So here you can choose the channel. You can choose either English or Spanish to follow up on the discussions. Vamos entonces a pasar a hacer este webinar en español.
So we are going to do this webinar in Spanish. There is the possibility of having interpretation through the English channel. You can find in the lower bar a word by which you can get the interpretation channel. Some things about the logistics of this webinar. We are recording the webinar. Therefore, the events will be recorded, and probably we are going to post some of the presentations in YouTube on the web. And the chat is open. You can raise questions. You can intervene on the chat. And if you need to take the camera, you will have the possibility if you ask so on the chat. I am Diana Lopez. I'm advisor on cities for the UNDP, and we are very happy to have our first webinar in Spanish. We will focus on how cities in Latin America are innovating in terms of urban waste and urban mobility. We have the experiences of 3 cities, very interesting ones that have conducted innovations. And as you very well know, innovation is never easy. It's a complex process that calls for a lot of work. And we are excited because our colleagues left their daily agendas in order to share their experiences. The new series for local solutions for UNDP started this year, only shortly ago, and our goal is to find solutions, specific solutions that shall help the local governments and the cities to use SDGs as a public management element in order to improve the lives of people. We have with us today the representatives of 3 experiences that are very interesting. First, we have the colleagues from Guatemala, UNDP. We have Juan Pablo Rustian from the Accelerator Lab, and Carol Dardor, who is the National Coordinator for the Small Grant Program. And we have our colleagues Antonio Colín and Jose Carrillo, Director of the Municipal Institute for Planning in Mexico. And to conclude, we also have the Municipality of Montevideo. We have Ignacio Lorenzo, who is the Director for Cleaning in the environmental area in Montevideo, and Fernando Traversa, that is with us, who is the coordinator for the liberated areas in Montevideo. So we will make 3 presentations. Our colleagues in the audience, the chat is open. We'll be checking it. If you want to make interventions or raise questions, you can do it in English or in Spanish, and I will be doing the translation. So without further ado, I want to give the floor to Juan Pablo Rustian, our colleague from the UNDP Guatemala, who will speak about this super project, a very interesting one that you are carrying out, supporting the municipalities in terms of circular economy, renewable energies, mobility. It's a very nice project, so we are willing to listen to you and learn more. We give the floor. Thank you, Diana. It's great that you are all here. My colleague Carol is sharing the screen so that I can start with the presentation. And as I was telling you, I was part of UNDP in Guatemala, and today we want to talk a little bit about the projects that we have conducted that have to do with social innovation. We will talk about circular economies here in Guatemala. Let's move to the next slide to give you an idea regarding what we do in the Acceleration Lab. I will talk a little bit about what we do or what's the idea of the Acceleration Lab, because sometimes you say Acceleration Lab, but what is that we are talking about? Well, social innovation is part of the fundamental pillars, but the wealth of the lab is citizenship, the people, because what we map and what we look for has to do with people. And I want to tell you that the beginning of this project that has to do with mobility started with a multidisciplinary collaboration. There's a large team behind this. It's not just one person who enabled all this. We have at least 50 people in the team or even more. And not only we talk about a specific knowledge, because we have lots of knowledges, we have tacit skills or specialized knowledge, because the idea is that these array of knowledges shall allow us to accelerate processes, innovation, tools. And the role of the lab for this project for electromobility was to have a grassroots solution, a solution that shall be coming from peoples, that shall allow us to achieve sustainable development. And as we talk about sustainable development, it should be friendly to the environment. So we want to co-create with people, and we want to have collaboration. And there are many people in this seminar that made this possible. In the case of Tuk Tuk, there is a team behind that. We have the government, we have the academia, we have technicians who are experts, because the idea is that ultimately we want the community to take ownership of the solutions. We are not the owners, but rather the community shall take ownership of the knowledge and the tools to be applied in the local context. And now let's talk about the specific project, the solar tuk-tuk, as you can see on the right. This has been very popular in Guatemala, and it has been mentioned also in a documentary called For Tomorrow. It's a very concrete example for some municipalities such as Chiquimula or Camotan. So we had a local conversation. We involved the local governments, the Ministry of the Environment, and all the sectors that were involved in the co-design of this tool, which is the solar tuk-tuk. And this led to a framework for the use of clean energies, because this is a solution that comes from the local context. You know, we are talking about the urban areas or density urban areas that are the most impacted. There was an electric tuk-tuk that was created for the transportation of people, children, women, or also the transportation of waste that represents a big problem in Guatemala. And finally, but not less important, the learnings. What is it that we learned as people in Guatemala, as people that co-created the solar tuk-tuk? Well, first, that this stems from rural needs. There is a real connectivity with development. We need to consider the most vulnerable communities. And also, apart from waste management, transportation is an issue. But beyond the advantages or the importance of creating a transportation method that shall be friendly with the environment, that will allow us to mitigate climate change, we should remember that behind all this, there is a lot of knowledge that comes from people, because we want to improve the quality of life of people. We want to impact from the social point of view. So this is the wealth of this project. And also, there is a lot of local knowledge that is implemented. We want an efficient, clean transportation. And there are many other alternatives that we can consider, but there is a clear opportunity for the collaboration with the local governments in order to eventually achieve this kind of tools as the solar tuk-tuk. So I'm going to conclude here, and I will give the floor to Carol, who will talk about the acceleration of solutions through partnerships. Thank you very much. Thank you, Juan, very much for the presentation. And as the small grant program, we've been working with the Accelerator Lab, and we want to create partnerships in order to see local solutions, innovative solutions that shall have a social impact, where we can incorporate the youth, women, And also, we have created some contests over the past 3 years, and we have actually created the Innovation Week, and we have involved other players. We have include other players. I mean, UNDP and UNICEF have been involved, and what we look is we look for innovative solutions proposed by the communities and the groups of young people. So the work has been very interesting, and we've been able to identify ideas, innovative ideas, and then solutions, innovative solutions. And it's been a very challenging work, but also has led to lots of discoveries and lessons learned. As a program, we have the opportunity to support these solutions and foster solutions locally. And that's why it's been work that we've been pushing forward with the Accelerator Lab, mapping the solutions and seeing how we scale them up and replicate them during the operational phase. We've seen that as from the pandemic and the post-pandemic time, we saw the need for identifying how the communities were generating solutions, resilient solutions, and innovative solutions, how they, through new actions, how they looked for ideas, they looked for actions that allowed them to confront the challenges and the new challenges that occur at community level. And that process has been very enriching. As a program also, we have generated different alternatives considering youth groups and women's groups, because we see a pressing need to work with the youth. In Guatemala, as you know, the youth migrate to other countries, especially the US, because there is lack of income, there is shortage of opportunities, there is shortage of economic resources. So both men and women migrate. But as we know, women have faced great challenges in Guatemala. I would say that more than 50% of women and young women are in Guatemala and are in this situation. So we have identified the need to work with women and groups of women.
In Guatemala, both women and groups of young people are not, they do not gather in legal entities. So we saw the need to promote this work and also to support both women's organizations, such as associations, cooperatives, as well as those organizations which are created by youth, so that they can seek ways to create their own income, but of course, from the perspective of the conservation of nature. In Guatemala, as you know, there is a majority of indigenous population, so there are several components which imply very big challenges. Women, young people, and young indigenous women. So we definitely have to focus on generating support for these solutions and actions which are being promoted in the territories by young people, young indigenous women, and in order to generate income. So since COVID-19 struck, the UNDP promoted a global recovery plan, and these components are focused on. We see the need to support these groups, and we also see the need for them to generate income through undertakings, but with important conservation components. And we also have the aim to promote the circular economy. This concept has been worked upon globally. But here in Guatemala, we are still trying to promote knowledge about the circular economy and how enterprises can promote income and the concept of the circular economy. Last year, we launched a call where we had the opportunity to identify very interesting groups which are already working on the circular economy, but actually they do not call it circular economy. And with the Acceleration Lab, we saw the need to encourage these examples, these interesting examples of circular economy. We want to see how we can use all the elements that the earth gives us for making a product specifically, and how this product has components that reduce contaminants and also helps generate a product or byproduct and goes back to the chain of use and to the reuse chain for generating the final product. We want a product that can be sold with added value. And the product should also have some traceability about how all of these components were used to make the product, reducing contaminants and putting it back into the reuse cycle with all the components and the inputs that these products can give. And in this way, we have identified a number of ideas. We have already seen some examples of what we call bio-inputs and bio-preparations by promoting biofactories. Basically, this consists of taking hold of components from the mountains or using food waste, plants, medicinal plants for the production of bio-inputs and biofertilizers. I don't know what they are called in different countries. In Guatemala, we call them bio-inputs or biofertilizers. Even biopesticides, which consist of the production of these organic fertilizers on a larger scale. As a consequence, communities are able to reduce contaminants, and also they are able to attain organic production of vegetables. And also agroforest production, which they use very often. And this is a benefit for the health of those people who use those fertilizers. And it also helps the health of those communities that consume these products, which are not used as chemicals. They are highly organic. And the final product is sold as an organic product. And markets are increasingly appreciating the value of these products because they improve health. We also identified an undertaking which uses feces and urine in order to produce biocarbon, which is another fertilizer being used to moisturize the soil and to preserve the soil. A prototype was made, but we are trying to scale up the solution through a process called pyrolysis. This process transforms these feces and urine. They are collected and they are transformed through this process into biocarbon. And these elements, which I understand still requires some awareness raising among populations so that they know how they can use this biocarbon for producing vegetables. Right now, work is going on with vegetables and with forestry and agricultural and forestry systems. It's necessary to understand how this contributes to soil conservation and the benefits for water conservation and for the conservation of humidity in the soil. This is quite important because in many territories in Guatemala, which are part of the dry belt, and there is no water, so biocarbon is a very interesting solution. We have also identified solutions promoted by young people. They collect cooking oil. Here in Guatemala, the management of restaurant oil, the oil used for fried chicken, is not governed by any regulations. Nobody knows what to do with this oil. And there is a very important lake in Guatemala, the Atitlan Lake, and there we are collecting the oil. There is a community organization led by young people, and they are collecting the oil and transforming it into soap so that it can be used to wash clothes, for industrial washing also. So we can see that there is a circular process in how oil is collected, how it is transformed, and the product is sold so that they can reinvest their earnings to collect more oil. The raw matter can be obtained because nobody knows what to do with this oil. But of course, the challenge is to sell this product and for people to understand where this soap comes from. Its effectiveness has already been proven. So I'm running out of time, so I would like to tell you that there are also cooperatives and we are working with them. We are doing interesting work to produce coffee. We have been working with a group of young people, and we are going to implement, we have already implemented an electric mobile cafeteria with solar panels. And young people will be working with coffee that is poured on in cups, because in Guatemala, a great deal of this coffee comes out of the country, and many tourists want to taste our coffee, but they can't find it anywhere. So we designed this electric mobile cafeteria that will sell an excellent kind of coffee that is produced by this cooperative, which has been certified. It has been certified as fair trade. It has been certified as fair to women because it is made up of groups of women. There are a number of interesting components which incorporate innovation, which incorporate young people. They incorporate women from a perspective that takes into account conservation in the circular economy, because the problem of waste in Guatemala and in the whole world is very strong, and we have to start supporting this concept, which makes it possible for a community organization or an enterprise or an undertaking to think about how they can generate income, how they can provide jobs, while preserving our territory and taking into account specific indicators of contaminant reduction. So I will leave it at that to respect the time of the other speakers. So we will gladly answer any questions about those components. Thank you very much, Carol, and thank you very much, Juan Pablo. This is a very interesting project. However, as usual, we always reach the same conclusion. It's not a matter of technology. It's difficult to innovate on technology because technology makes very rapid progress. There are solutions with electric panels, electric batteries. Technology provides more and more solutions. However, the city is a political matter, and people live in the city, and we have to deal with phenomena which are not technological in nature. There is a new generation of waste which changes consumption and production parameters. People ask for new things. People buy and sell and dump things which they didn't used to dump 25 years ago. We can see these in the field of waste in different cities of the world, and this is changing. So always it is a municipality that has to deal with these problems. But we also generate innovations in public institutions. And I think that your approach in Guatemala, which consists of including the environment, income generation to make initiatives sustainable, I have liked very much to listen to concrete solutions that people can understand. For example, how coffee is produced, how soap is produced. so that the circular economy can be visually understood. Otherwise, it's kind of an abstract concept, and people don't understand that our daily consumption parameters can generate products that can be sold. And I also liked the idea of scaling up initiatives. When innovation is small, it's necessary to think of its scale and of its sustainability and of income generation for the communities. In this regard, I would like to give the floor now to the other two cities so that they can ask you follow-up questions. I would like to start with Hermosillo. Jose, do you have any comments or questions for our colleagues? The presentation was extremely interesting, and my question is, these circular economy undertakings, did they have any seed capital? And how are you working for the economic sustainability of these projects? Thank you very much. As a program, we do provide seed capital so that they can promote some components of their undertaking. Specifically, the technification is an important component of these solutions. When the type of product or the quality of the product is considered, or to keep the quality of the product, that is fundamental in these first attempts, because we have always had value chains, but the circular economy had not been such an important component as we want to turn it into now. And I think that the investment that we are making is providing technical advice through an accelerator, an organization that works with social enterprises and with impact enterprises and with green economy undertakings. This is one of the biggest challenges, because many of those organizations and associations are not created with a business vision, but to work on conservation or to work on the social problems of the community. So the challenge is to be able to think about this as an enterprise and to strengthen their internal structure, because many of these undertakings are led by 2 people and sometimes 3 at the most, but there are only 2 people doing everything. So these 2 people have to know what their roles are. And I think that has been one of the challenges, but definitely we provide them with funds in order to strengthen their internal organizational structure to support their technification and access to markets. Thank you. Any other question on your part, or should we listen to Montevideo? Well, there is just one comment about tuk-tuk. Would you like to elaborate on tuk-tuk, which is a low-emission project and a very interesting one? Yes, of course. I would like to mention that in the case of tuk-tuk, there was no seed capital at the beginning, because this initiative started when the pandemic had started, and it required the collaboration of many people. So we didn't have any seed capital as such. The richness or the capital was the knowledge of all the parties to generate the solar tuk-tuk prototype. And currently, it is in an experimental stage. It is being prototyped. Thank you.
Muchas gracias. Sí, le doy la palabra a Montevideo, Ignacio o Fernando, alguno de los dos. Gracias.
Muchas gracias y bueno, en primer lugar felicitar a los colegas de Guatemala, muy interesante la...
Thank you very much. First of all, I want to congratulate the colleagues from Guatemala. Our question is more general, and let me give you the context. We consider the strategic relevance of the participation of those that have to create a cultural change, those who handle the waste and the citizens. What you are doing is very innovative, and I want to know what's the feeling of those who are involved in the initiatives when they consider the personal protection and also a source of pride in terms of collaboration. And the community also, what's the feeling of the community in terms of their participation and collaboration? Thank you very much. Yes, at community level, those who propose the solutions and the proposals are the very same communities. That's how the program works. They present what they want to do, and we work with them on these ideas and on these solutions. Sometimes we talk about ideas, sometimes we talk about solutions, but definitely the change in the mindset, it's complicated because the communities have a way of working. And if I talk to the community about circular economy, as Diana was saying, this is a concept that seems to be, I don't know, abstract, that it's up in the air, but that is not recognized by anybody, at least here in Guatemala. Yes, it is recognized by large companies. They talk about that term because the markets are requesting that, but not the communities. So when we talk with the communities, they say, but what are we talking about? What's that? So we explain to them that the idea is to be able to use things, and they say, yes, we are doing that. And they say, okay, what we are doing is to take everything, all the waste of the product, and we go through a process of transformation. So they are doing that transformation. So the important thing is to identify with them that those components are important for the traceability of the product and also for conservation. The community understands. Actually, there are many Maya communities in Guatemala, and they understand that because that is part of their cosmovision. For them, the conservation of Mother Nature is a priority. So the point is to talk a lot, to build a concept of circular economy that will make progress, because there are lots of value chains, but the change should have a circularity, and that is what we want to achieve. We want the communities to understand the idea is not only to purchase the equipment and talk about the value chain and that's the end of the story. No, the idea is to generate components to reduce pollution. And I believe that the country is in a good moment because we already have some policies that UNDP has been working with the national government, fostering recycling. Still, as a country, we are lagging behind, but UNDP has been making progress for the generation of policies. So we joined that process to work with the communities, although we are a small program, so the impact is quite reduced. But I believe that these are pilot projects and experiences that will inspire others. And when we talk about the projects, people are interested. We saw that with the bio plants. Communities loved those things. They see that in the production of bio inputs and bio pesticides, there is an added value. And there we have clear components to reduce pollution. So I would stay there to avoid taking up more time. Thank you. Thank you, Carol. I just wanted to conclude and make a contribution from the Accelerator Lab. The idea is to change the mindsets of the communities. It's a challenge, but we've learned something. And actually, with the different initiatives, we did many initiatives. We did a pilot test with neighbors here in Guatemala to actually teach them how to handle solid waste. And it's been a challenge, but we really find it very interesting to start at a small scale, because sometimes people don't do things because they don't know how to do it and they need support. It's not the same to do things by themselves as compared to doing things with collective support. So through the different projects, we understood that working with the people, the institutions, the local governments, you achieve things because the results were very good. So the idea is to transfer skills. That's key when we talk about social innovation, beyond the solar tuk-tuk or the revamping of a truck. Always we have to go hand in hand with people. Yes, because sometimes innovation is what make changes in the community. So people, even if it is small, people start thinking that things can be done differently. And that is something that we don't talk a lot about, because when we talk about innovation, we always think about technological innovation and we don't think about social innovation and the changes in mindsets that we need in communities. So sometimes introducing something small, such as the tuk-tuk, we are not talking about a large infrastructure. If we talk about, for example, a three-wheeled motorbike, whatever, that's small, but maybe the idea is redoing things as they were done before, but better. So through innovation, we go back to what was done by our grandparents, for example, but better. Maybe the idea is to be concerned about nature because nature feeds you. So oftentimes in the cities, we lose that connection. And oftentimes the innovations show us that things were done better 50 years ago as compared to today. So this topic is very interesting. We are going to move forward to another project that is very good and great innovation is occurring in the continent. I will give the floor to Jose Carrillo, which is he's the director of Implan, which is the Institute for Urban Planning in Hermosillo. We give the floor to Jose. I want to share my presentation. Okay, at this point in time, we are presenting a project that we called Biciclando. Here we have the image of our program. What is it that started the program? Well, Biciclando is a program that is focused on gender mainstreaming for recycling and sustainable mobility. What are some of the challenges? Well, the low percentage of recycling that we have in the city. We want to increase that culture of recycling and the possibility of making use of waste in a more economical way and in order to create economic benefits. And also with the pandemic, jobs were lost, especially women lost their jobs. This was the great impact that we suffered in the city. Also, we have detected that motorized vehicles produce 35% of local greenhouse gas emissions. And also 3% of the trips in Hermosillo are done by bicycle, and only 15% of the cyclists are women. And also 70% of women in Hermosillo perceive public space as unsafe. So we created this program where we are combining three components. We have the circular economy centers, the recycling collection, and also the building cycling infrastructure. These are the three components that are the most important. The circular economy centers are the operation centers of the program, but also they are centers for innovation in green economy. And the idea is to generate synergies in the community. And the Biciclando program is done through a platform, an app where the users can request the home service so that the operators of the program can do the collection free of charge through this vehicle, which is a three-wheeled motorbike, and it has an electric assisted cargo. And this is done at the household. The collection is done at the household and also in certain shops where we are working with this program. And also, the idea is to guarantee the security of the operators, and we want to promote the use of bikes. So we were trying to foster the cycling infrastructure in order to make the mobility safer and more comfortable. So we are conducting a pilot test. The area that we see in blue is the coverage area. It's a place which is called Modelo neighborhood. We have done the pilot test there, and we're trying to scale up and move towards other neighborhoods in the sector. And also, we are considering the recycling collection of aluminum, cardboard, paper, PET, and Tetra Pak. We have certain places where we are creating strategic storage places for collection, and also we have appointments in order to collect the recyclable product with this system. Now we are working on this project, and the duration of the project is for 3 months, and it is scalable because we have a goal to build 2 circular economy centers over the next 2-3 years. We want to have a fleet of up to 24 bicycles, and we want to have up to 70,000 direct beneficiaries that shall deliver their products for the program. And also, this project has the idea to manage different products such as aluminum, cardboard, paper, PET, and Tetra Pak. So these products can be used as an additional income for women. We are talking about women who are in a vulnerable situation from the economic point of view. So we have 3 big goals. One is to increase the recycling of products. Number 2, to support the women's economy in their household because they are in a vulnerable situation, so that they can have an additional income with this possibility. And then also to promote biking mobility. It would be inconsistent to look for sustainable development and to use vehicles using fossil fuels. So we decided that we should have a vehicle that shall be electrically assisted, safe, so that women can do this job. It is important to say that the community has really been involved in this program, and this is being extended to other neighborhoods. And there are certain houses that are participating in the selection, segregation, and cleaning of the material. And also we have some partners who are involved in delivering the waste from companies that, for example, there are restaurants or coffee shops or other companies who are also participating, delivering the recycled clean material. So the idea is to convert the waste into an income for women who are in a vulnerable situation.
Right now, we are working on a prototype. In September, we are going to receive a new improved version of this cycling unit with this cargo trailer. And we are about to start this new stage. And we will start with circular economy centers. That is an important component that makes the program visible, but also provides a community space where we can promote green undertakings and environmental culture. So I will leave it at that. I will finish my presentation here. Thank you very much, Jose. This project is especially interesting, but it is also a great challenge because this it involves the innovation of electrically assisted bikes, which are actually not electrical, they are electric assisted. They help mobility because we have to distinguish between exclusively electrical bicycles, such as the ones in Guatemala, which have some powered electric battery, but nobody uses the pedals. So I think this is interesting because right now batteries need to be charged, but new technologies will make it possible for us to stop using electrical energy so that the battery can be charged while you are using the pedals. That would be a total revolution, not only for urban mobility, but also for the way we manage this kind of projects when the prices of energy have rocketed worldwide. And we don't see where this is going to stop. We have developed societies based on the idea that energy would continue to flow at not a cheap price, but at least a reasonable one. And every adaptation of services so that they can be electrically assisted, which has great effects on health and on the fact that it's nice to ride a bike. And many communities are not used to feeling the freedom of riding a bike. So this is also a good motivation factor. Obviously, there are challenges like in all innovation projects. And you have mentioned an important fact, the consumption parameters, because the project works if the consumers that dump the waste process it in such a way that it will be sort of prepared to be properly processed. Part of the work is done at home, and it's necessary to raise awareness among citizens. This is a communication problem, and we usually have problems to communicate with our citizens. But citizens or institutions know where waste goes, and if they see what happens, if they see how the municipality develops these processes so that they will help communities and respect the environment, citizens typically react well. When things are properly explained to them, citizens in general, not everybody, but the great majority, actually respond and behave well in unknown and stressful situations, which create great pressure for everyone. So I think this is a project that involves many challenges, but also many points to be successful. So I'm now going to give the floor first to Guatemala and then to Montevideo. If you want to ask any questions of Jose, Carol or Juan. Thank you. Yes, Juan, perhaps you have a question. First, I would like to congratulate you on this project. I would like to replicate it in Guatemala. You know that traffic is terrible, so bikes have become a feasible option. My question is, after all of these waste, PET and cardboard paper is collected, what happens with that? Do you take that to a recycling center? How does it work? That's one of the biggest dilemmas we have in Guatemala. What happens afterwards? Thank you. Yes. In the city, we do have some centers that receive material to be recycled. These are an open market. Prices fluctuate depending on product demand. We know that aluminum is the product with the greatest value after cardboard paper. We are working on PET in coordination with Tetra Pak, the ones who make this product. So we are working strategically. The idea is to receive this recyclable material, which is being collected. This material is delivered to the recycling centers, and the centers pay directly to the woman driving the bicycle depending on weight. The minimum goal of the bicycle driver is to obtain 100 kilos of recyclable material, and the capacity is 300 kilos during business hours. So this kind of income is fair. So in this way, they can help their family. This is above the national minimum wage. So it's what Diana was saying is very important. For things to have a monetary value, we have to train neighbors and businesses so that they deliver the material, they deliver clean and compacted material and segregated so that its sale can command a higher value. In our different recycling centers. Thank you very much, Jose. I don't know if Fernando or Ignacio from Montevideo have another question. Very briefly, because we are running out of time. Considering the group of women who participate in the program, how are they incorporated? Are they trained? How does the community or the institution incorporate women? Well, there is a selection process that is conducted through an area of the city's municipality. That is the Directorate for Women. They spot those women in vulnerable situations. However, these women have to meet some requirements in terms of driving capability, health requirements, and they are trained in order to manage waste, on how to manage cargo, on how to drive a bike in the city, and also they are trained on the biking mechanics. They are given all this training, and they are prepared so that women can ride the bike on the streets and can face any weather or mechanic challenges or any mobility challenges they have to face. They are also trained to make this management more effective and efficient so that they can optimize their income through segregation. Actually, at one stage, after waste has been collected, it's possible to improve separation and to select waste and clean it so that they can command a higher value. So training is extremely important. And for selection of women, we use this area that detects women in situations of economic vulnerability. Thank you very much, Jose. Antonio, I see you want to ask a question. Right. I wanted to add to these key components already presented by our head of IMPLAN. The Biciclando program also has the goal of fostering active mobility with a female perspective. We believe we want women to have a living example with this program that it is safe to use a bike in the city, and that women can also use it for economic activities, not only for recreational purposes. This is one extra component that is important for the program. Thank you very much, Antonio. I would like to remind participants following us that you can ask to speak through the chat box. After Montevideo's presentation, we will be able to give you the floor if you want to make any remarks or questions. If you want to write a question in the chat, I will keep track of them. Now we will listen to Montevideo's experience. We have two presenters, Ignacio Lorenzo, the Director of Environmental Cleanup, and Fernando Traversa, the Coordinator of Cleaned Up Areas. Please remind me who is going to speak first. Ignacio will go first. Okay, so you have the floor. Okay, can you see the presentation? Right. Please, could you check if you can share the slides presentation? Can you see the slides? Yes, we can. Thank you. Great, perfect. I will try to be very brief. First, I'd like to tell you that this presentation includes the work that we are doing with the UNDP, considering working logic based on strategic innovation and systemic approaches as part of the demo program. We identified public policy problems which are worked upon by deep listening, by listening to participants, and by building prototypes to create solutions within an innovation framework. This reflects this structure, precisely considering waste. We need to understand the system, embrace complexity, create spaces for action, create acceleration processes for these problems, and carrying out cross-functional work in some areas. Here, we can see different working areas that we share with the UNDP. I am going to explain the project in general, and they explain what we do with the three-wheelers. And then I will give the floor to Juan so that he can explain what we do with the big demo, one of the biggest projects we are conducting. First, the new cleaning up strategy proposed in 2021 incorporates 5 pillars. The first one is greater urban cleanup, greater waste valorization, differentiation of the waste collection systems. As part of the differentiation, we consider the use of technology, but also the urban dynamics in the different neighborhoods and contexts. We also include diversification in terms of waste streams for the valorization. Another component is social inclusion. In Montevideo, in Uruguay, and in all of Latin America, there are many people who work informally in waste picking. We want to include them into safe jobs with occupational health and stable income. That is part of their personal and family development. And also another component is oversight. We believe we have a robust regulatory framework, but more oversight is needed for compliance. This also happens in Latin America. And this is applied through some cross-cutting principles. The first one is equality and differentiation. We want to ensure environmental rights of different kinds for all citizens, not using the same tools, but trying to find the best tool for each context. The idea is to have different policies for achieving equitable rights. Another component is participation, environmental education, and participation. The municipality of the city has a primary responsibility in waste management, but this responsibility can only be fulfilled with the active participation of citizens. And finally, evidence-based decision-making using data. We want to gather transparent data that make it possible to make good decisions. In particular, moving on to one of urban cleaning and the changes in the collection system and social inclusion, we want to work on three-wheelers. This is a picture, a typical picture of Montevideo a long time ago. There used to be many informal waste pickers who worked with these horse carts. They had been built artisanally, and they used them to carry out different unpaid tasks and informal tasks in the city. In particular, they sought material that could be recycled. Based on the work between the municipality and the informal waste pickers, we developed at the end of the past administration the three-wheeler program. The idea was to work on different perspectives. One of them was with responsible ownership of animals to make sure that they didn't have problems with those animals. So we decided to work with the community to devise a program where informal waste pickers would be able to formalize their situation and include new tools. In that regard, we created the three-wheeler program, which in general resulted from an exchange. The municipality bought and financed these vehicles, which are very similar to the tuk-tuk. These vehicles were delivered to the families of informal waste pickers. And in exchange, formal waste pickers had to deliver their horse-pulled carts as a donation to people who take care of animals in the periphery. They have fields for these animals, so they can have a quiet life. Another point of this exchange was that informal waste pickers were included into a training process. They were taught about technological tools. For example, how to use a smartphone with different apps to follow up on their tasks. They were also taught, or they were helped to learn to read and write. This was done gradually with voice applications. They were also taught to drive. They are supported in the process of obtaining their driving license. And finally, they graduate from the program and they have a contract with the municipality to carry out different tasks. This is a protected contract, which is part of a legal framework, and it has a special treatment, and the state can contract them directly. They are included into a simplified tax regime. There is a list of those people who can be part of that regime. Under that working scheme, public administration includes these people in a stable job. This creates a remarkable income increase, and it improves different regulatory aspects. At the beginning of our administration, we had about 20 three-wheelers in a small part of the city. We piloted the program, and this administration, having read the conclusions of the previous program, decided to enlarge it, to enlarge the number of three-wheelers and the tasks that they carried out.
So in 2022, we had 67 three-wheelers. By the close of 2022, 132. And at the close of 2023, we have our target on the screen. We started in Montevideo. We expanded the coverage towards the periphery. We see different tasks. This is one that is very interesting. Reporting the dumping of waste outside the containers. And a neighbor, through a WhatsApp number, can send a picture of a cleaning program that goes to a centralized area, and in a 2-hour threshold, the solution is found. This allowed us to have different annual solutions that in the past we used the telephone, the mail, an app, but now everything is concentrated in the WhatsApp number. And this allows us to reach 600,000 annual services. We have multiplied by 100 our action capacity in terms of cleaning in the city. Another problem is the big bags. These are another alternative. The bags are distributed in the city so that the neighbors can put their plastic, cardboard, paper, tins clean, dry, and compacted. They take a picture, they send to the WhatsApp number, and they are picked up for sorting. Today, we have more than 3,500 big bag sites throughout the city. The distribution is quite heterogeneous. The material recovered there is very good. More than 95% is recovered, as compared to the past, where only 30 or 40% of the material was recovered. The sorting was poor, the material was polluted, so that has changed. So this has allowed us, in less than 3 years, to double the number of recycled material. As from those 500 voluntary delivery points we had in the past, and 140 in the rest of the city. We have that already, but the three-wheelers, we doubled our capacity. We also go and pick up door by door the bulky waste, debris, electrical appliances, furniture, the three-wheeler picks that up, and that goes to the sorting plant. This year, we have had more than 30,000 services. In the height of the electronic appliances, this goes to a plant where more than 6,000 bulky waste activities have been done. More than 300 tons recovered, 12 former sorters with formal income, and 60% of recovery for use or repaired. The electrical appliances are repaired or we obtain spare parts. Another task that we started last year is to do composting. This is the first community composting in a public park, and it serves 6 sites. There are 6 households that are being supported by this community composting site. The three-wheelers goes door by door to pick up the organic waste. We have 8 tons recovered since the beginning of the program. Less than 3% of that community is improper, so the organic materials is very well managed. The three-wheeler checks and takes the material. And the operators are trained to secure the right operation of the system. That's the end of my presentation, and now I give the floor to my colleague, Fernando. Thank you. You have 5-6 minutes more. Okay, we will make an effort to be short. Okay, liberated areas or cleaned up areas is a program that occurred as a circumstance that was occurring in Montevideo. Montevideo is distributed among 8 municipalities. As a city, it's a single city, but it is distributed in 8 local governments. But not only we can see it in that way, we can see Montevideo as a city that is strongly crossed by watercourses. Montevideo has a great wealth in watercourses, and Montevideo can be analyzed in 6 different basins. And why is it that I mention this? Because this project originated from a flood that occurred with very strong rainfall in January 2021 in the Carrasco stream that really was impacted. But the municipality had studied before the impact of the informal disposal sites. And we had mapped that, especially in the swampy stream. We started there, and there were 82 informal dumps that had been identified and had been categorized. And that allowed us to understand that there were certain waste that had their origin in informal processes, sorting processes that did not consider the remnant of the waste and used the watercourse as the dumping site. Also, there were certain companies that, in order to reduce the cost of transportation for the final disposal, would dispose the waste in water courses. And also we had a criminal activity waste, such as burnt cars in water courses. So through the identification of the basins and the analysis of the water courses, these sites associated to the courses, in the beginning there were 82, and today we have close to 700 sites that we are identifying, between those that are directly connected to the water courses and those that are in public spaces. And why is it that I make that difference? Because those that are in public spaces already had been cleaned by the municipality considering the urban cleaning criteria, following permanent maintenance cycles, but somehow we are restricted because, in fact, there were many sites that were in private site, there were legal limitations to have access to those sites, or there were sites with clandestine dumps where there were legal circumstances or criminal circumstances that would prevent access. So when we started working with liberated areas, we incorporated certain improvements in the regulations. For example, we presented before the authorities and we approved a regulation that authorizes the access to neglected or spaces when it is which is necessary, and we decided to work all together on the different areas. So this is a cross-cutting project that allows us twice a week in different areas, we can identify the different places and we can act on site at the moment when we identify a site. We go together, we do an inspection. We have the inspection team, we have the health, the sanitation team, we have the cleaning team, we have a sanitation also that works on vectors. So all together as a group, we made our approach more complex in order to reach more sites and in a better way. Just as a sample, we have 779 sites identified so far, and 40 odd are considered fully eradicated. 200 are served regularly in public spaces. There are some that are joined, and in fact, most of the sites have been identified as from this mapping, and this work is being done by air. We work with air images, we come close to the site, we see the conditions, and it is as from this identification that we discover sites. For example, this site that is here, which is a sorter site that was gaining ground on the stream. So under this criteria, we can observe the Montevideo as a whole following the water courses. So also I would like to say that when we did the analysis, we realized that out of the 779 sites, we should divide them in thirds. 31% are in private property, 41% in settlements, that is to say, in places that are inhabited in an irregular way, and close to 30% or 28% are in public spaces, that is, in roads, in parks, in different places. So somehow that categorization allowed us to go deeper in the analysis done in the very beginning. And as from this process of identification of all the different sites, we tried to develop improvement processes. And in that sense, it's good to say that on a weekly basis, this project allows us to have high-level meetings led by the mayor, gathering the authorities of the different departments, and this allows us to lead to improvements.
We have been able to improve inspection by incorporating cameras, lorries with GPS in order to control the areas. We have used a geolocation system with geocells that makes it possible to detect when a lorry comes into a place considered as a dump site in order to be inspected. In addition, we made progress in cleaning processes. So based on this cleanup, in the first 18 months, we have been able to remove from the informal dump sites 76,000 tons of waste, which did not reach Montevideo's final disposition site, but were being dumped irregularly. However, that's not all. We wondered, what do we want to do with these spaces? If we want to clean up these spaces, we should give them back to the community in a different form. So we made progress with public spaces projects. And in that regard, we should say that we are about to start making over 30 projects, which go from S squares of up to 300 square meters, M size squares up to 650 square meters, L size squares over 1,000 square meters squares. So the idea is to go beyond the cleanup in order to give these spaces back to citizens when they used to be occupied by garbage. In addition, seeking to reduce the amount of waste in water streams, we found an interesting experience that was being developed in Guatemala, actually. This was the development of artisanal networks and biofences. Actually, right now, we are developing 50 biofences to install 25 and to have adequate replenishment systems, working with the three-wheelers and with the solidarity organizations for the installation and maintenance of these networks. At the same time, we are buying industrial networks. For example, nets for the three big streams of Montevideo, the Pantanoso stream, the Migueletes stream, and Carrasco stream, so that waste will not reach the River Plate. And in addition, we are generating modular racks for special water courses. In that regard, the idea is not just to hold waste and to work to remove them, but also to work on regreening processes. That's why I would like to highlight the process that we have been conducting with the UNDP, in particular in one neighborhood in Montevideo, the Bajo Valencia neighborhood, and more specifically, the Bajo Valencia neighborhood is here. This neighborhood, the neighbors of this neighborhood presented a project to the municipality because the coastal area should be here, but to the west of Montevideo, after this point, there's almost no space for neighborhood development. And so they used to call it the West Coast. I'm sorry, I need to ask you to wrap it up. So we found that there was a very big ravine which was affected by waste. And so we have worked on improving waste collection, in tree planting in this area, and on recovering natural space. That's the point of the Cleaned Up Areas program. And we are working with the UNDP on that. Thank you. Thank you very much, Fernando. We could spend the whole day speaking about Montevideo's experience. I would like to highlight a few aspects of your presentation. First, you were able to give a new approach to participation. We talk a lot about participation, and I think that this term, deep listening, is one step forward with regard to traditional participation, which is kind of a cliche concept, since it's being used in situations where no specific opinions are given to local governments so that they can make better decisions. I think that you have made a good review of data, and you are able to collect data from citizens and give them back to them, because very often institutions suck data but don't communicate them. Moving on to other aspects that you mentioned, everything is connected in the city. You have mentioned several SDGs in your talk, considering removing horses from the streets, with all the health aspects implied in that, providing driving licenses to informal workers. I think that there is a question about informality, which has been dealt with in the three experiences, which is how to give people a small initial contract, even if it's not too big or too important. This contract takes them out of their informality situation and puts them on track to become more formal. Even if this contract is not final and it's a bit small, it gives them the way out from informality. And also, you have mentioned stable income. I like the word stable because we talk a lot about income, but people need to have continuity over time to have a way out of poverty. I like the Big Bags project, which is a very concrete proposal. They are not expensive. You don't need a big contract. They are very easy, cheap solutions, but you have to pick them up. You have to put them back in. You have to maintain them. And also, I also liked the composting component. I think this is also a small initiative so that citizens can change their mindset with regard to waste. I do this at home, and it's very little because I live in New York, where waste is totally unleashed. But for people, this is useful so that they know that they can start with a very small thing, but they can also incorporate plastic, then they can buy less plastic, buy less cardboard. So composting is a very small component which can generate behavioral change in people. And I liked the cleaned up areas project too, especially how it deals with the space of the city. The municipality has certain public policies, it works on public space, and you have created opportunities based on the challenge of floods. And this was dealt with from the spatial point of view. It would be great if you could share the link with us in the chat box so that we can link it to Montevideo's map. We have 6 or 7 more minutes. We have 2 questions in the chat, and we are going to have a last round of presentations for the 3 cities. We have a question from Pedro Moraes. I understand he's from Brazil because it's in Portuguese. His question is, have you worked with young people? This is a question for the 3 cities. Have you worked with young people, and have young people had any government support to make progress with these ideas? For example, a contest of innovative ideas. And the second question is by Paola Constantino. Her question is, what was the informality? How did communities go from informality to formality, and what were the biggest challenges that you found? So since we have very little time, we should deal with informality, youth, and I'd like to give the floor to Montevideo, Hermosillo, and Guatemala. And that would be the end of the meeting. So Fernando, Ignacio, very briefly. In terms of informality, it is very important to incorporate it in the field of waste. One of our pillars is social inclusion. We proposed this from day one. We cannot solve this problem without including, and by informality, I mean mainly informal waste pickers, both in the places where they live and how they work around the entire city. So we developed this formal process. But there are other formalization processes which have to do with inspection. There are informal elements in very big companies or in companies which seem to be very formal, but this is very complex with waste. So working on inspection is also substantial. Both parts have to be considered, more opportunities and more control. In that regard, in terms of opportunities, we are working with a group, and in the group of sorters, we want to generate more diverse elements, considering gender and age aspects, the way their families are made up, in order to work with as diverse a group as possible, so that we can learn on the best strategies for each of those characteristics. For example, the working schedule, the places where they can work, how easy or complex it is to use mobile apps for people of different ages. The idea is to generate tools which agree with the person's reality. And Fernando, would you like to add anything? Fernando, I think the thing is that I am using Ignacio's microphone in order not to create an echo. And so now you can see me twice. I would like to add that I think that this coordination process between the environmental development department and the social development department is expressed in many different ways. Strong processes are developed to formalize people, to formalize ex-sorters, which are incorporated as drivers, and so they become part of the waste collection system. So they have stable jobs as servants of the city's cleaning system. And in addition, we work directly with those sorters, which sometimes also grow pigs. So you have to work to correct some formal aspects. So sometimes there is no single solution or one size fits all solution. Montevideo's cleaning system has been conceptualized as a different solution for each neighborhood. Inclusion also involves developing multiple solutions to include aspects of social inclusion in the context of cleaning. Thank you very much. And I'd like to give the floor to Jose. Yes, with regard to young people, we have been working with universities. We have been doing field work. We have been working with surveys. And we have collaborated with universities for the participatory design of the circular economy centers. We know that in the future, when applications have to be used, we will need the support of young people to train others. And in the case of the street informal waste pickers, one aspect that needs to be addressed is that currently citizens feel that the work of these people is a nuisance because these people spread garbage around and cause some damage. And so people see the Biciclando program as a way to separate and deliver waste so that they can avoid informal waste collection. However, we know that these people also need an income, so we have to analyze what's going to happen with informal waste pickers in the future. Thank you very much, Jose. From Guatemala, does any of you want to say something else? Yes, since we have no more time, I would like to add what we are doing with young people. Young people has been key in our projects. For example, in the case of Solar Tuk-Tuk, when this initiative started, it was young people who started to design the prototype. They were young people from different intercap courses. They had knowledge of engineering and electricity, and they were a crucial part of this social innovation project. In the case of the waste collectors, neighbors, the separation of solid waste, young people were heavily involved. And not only adults were included, but young people had a substantial role. And when the contest was organized, we worked with the universities and young people for the redesign of the waste collection lorry. So we worked with the citizens in general, but also with young people. Young people are fundamental because the next generation should be in charge of all of this, the separation of solid waste, encouraging social innovation projects. And that's what I wanted to add. Thank you very much. We should have scheduled 3 hours for this webinar, but thank you very much. It has been very interesting. As usual, I learned a lot from local governments. I would like to thank you for your time. I would only like to say that our team will process this learning. We will develop a paper with some recommendations with the points that we discussed today, and we will try to develop some infographics to better communicate the lessons learned. We will do all of this through our webpage, and we will stay in touch with you to send you these communication products. Without further ado, I would like to thank you very much for joining us today, and see you next time.